Welcome to the Careers channel. My name is Sylvester Moyo, and I'm a public health scientist with over 15 years experience working in multi-country projects. And most importantly, I'm also a student, a PhD student in microbiology at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in Durban. So today, I want to talk about, the importance of continuous learning, being flexible, just, treating your career as an investment and treating it as a portfolio investment, and how you keep building skills, making sure that portfolio remains valuable going into the future. And also some things that have also helped me along the way in terms of always thinking about, okay, what's going to be important in the next 5 years? Because honestly speaking, the skills that you might have or the education that you might have used 5 years ago to get a job, 5 years ago is probably no longer relevant. I mean, things have changed. We are talking about technological advancements that you need to now be aware of and be able to use. And 5 years ago, some of these things were not there. I mean, this time we have AI, it's now the big word. We've got genomics, we've got bioinformatics. These were some things that were, theoretical 5 years ago, but now they are here and they are actually defining what to have a job is, what jobs really are. So it's always important for you to keep learning, keep growing, and also complementing your education with experience. So I hope to share my experience in my career and how that has really helped me along the way. So I want to take you back in 2012, where I was a lab scientist working on the bench, running some HIV viral load tests. So these are tests that support the treatment of people who are on ARVs or antiretroviral treatment, and they are very important in monitoring whether this person is responding well to the treatment. So, looking at that 2012 and currently right now, I'm in a space where I am running, what we call pipelines in bioinformatics. And these pipelines, are systems that you use to analyze what we call whole genome sequencing data. Where we're now trying to get insights from this whole genome sequencing. So just to highlight, in 2012, I was on the bench running HIV viral load tests, but currently I'm managing projects. I'm running sophisticated tests using whole genome sequencing and bioinformatics. So that, that whole transition was not going to be possible if I still had the same skills, same education I had in 2012. That was not going to be possible. So really, I also want to just highlight that, that growth was not covered only just by a single title, a job, or a single education, but a series of decisions along the way. So someone can ask, okay, what led to, this continuous learning? Why is it important? So I would like to put it into perspective. I also like to read around a lot of books. So one of the books that I've read that have really played a huge role in some of the decisions I've made is a book called Originals by Adam Grant. So this book talks about a concept called Vuja So Vuja is actually the opposite of deja vu. So deja vu, it talks about, seeing something that happens and then you think, oh, I've seen this happening before. But Vuja, which is the opposite of deja vu, is looking at the same thing that has happened, but looking at it from a different lens, a different perspective. And this is exactly what education, continuous education has done for me. Going back to 2012, where I was working on the bench, I was technical. I just was running tests, setting up tests, running tests, releasing results to clinicians so that they could manage their patients. But then through the education and the choices that I made to continue educating myself, I then found myself seeing the same kind of work, but in a different view. For example, I'll give an example. I did a postgrad in procurement supply chain. And when I was, besides just doing tests on the ground, the HIV viral tests, I started also, from that education, started thinking about, supply chain. How do I keep the lab running? And that really informed. I ended up, working with the procurement and supply chain team from another department, and this helped me also maintain good relations, make sure that my lab is up and running and there are no shortages. So this is doing the same work, but now after learning something, applying a new lens. So Vujade keyword that really has helped. Similarly, I think I would also like to speak about my personal interest in clinical trials. So as part of some of the, pursuits of education, I also have a postgrad diploma in medicines development from Stellenbosch University in Cape Town. And the reason for this was out of an interest of saying, I want to know how drugs end up in a pharmacy or over the counter where you buy them. So combining my technical knowledge in terms of medical lab science, I wanted to also know what does it take to go all the way through clinical trials to coming up with a medicine. So this is something that was out of personal interest, but it has also helped me understand aspects of what it takes to engage different stakeholders, for example. And that is something that is a transferable skill. I'm not yet in clinical research, but I'm using that information and what I've learned to see things, the same things that I do, but in a different perspective. So every time I stepped into a new learning space, whether that was, as I mentioned, pursuing a postgrad diploma in medicines development, or a postgrad diploma in procurement and supply chain, and eventually an MBA, I wasn't abandoning the scientist in me, but I was learning to also see my existing work in a different lens. And at the end of the day, that also changed the quality of everything that I then brought to the table, regardless of what team I was working in. For example, I talked about the medicines development part and the MBA. That helped me to know, the different stakeholders for a lab. Although I was trained in lab, you now need to start thinking of the supply chain aspects. You also think about the clinicians. It's not only just about releasing results, but also, going a step further. What do clinicians want from those results? Can you explain it to them? Help them manage their patients. From an MBA perspective, also learning the different stakeholders in any project. So thinking about, stakeholders like the government, thinking about stakeholders like your patients, internally also, the other colleagues that you work with. So all this really just to say, by getting more qualifications, education, and complementing it with experience, you see the same work that you're doing, but in a different lens. And that also, supports your growth as a professional. So there's a long-held belief that the path to success is more about specializing. So going deep, becoming an expert in one thing. And I agree, depth matters a lot, absolutely. But when the modern workplace, it really requires you to integrate. So integrate different skill sets, not just specialize in one. And that actually adds value to you. So looking at my own academic journey, I started off with a BSc honors in biological sciences. I then went to a bachelor's in technology in pharmaceutical sciences, and then the postgraduate diplomas in medicines development, in supply chain management, and then international public health, and also the MBA. So people most of the time ask me, why so many qualifications? Why did you just go deeper into like one area of specialization? And really, if you look at fields like my own currently, technology is adding another type, another layer, if I can say. So, you need to think about having, not being a specialist. I don't have anything against that, but perhaps think about being a generalist, and think about what skills you need to say. So, going back to the book I mentioned, The Originals by Adam Grant, one thing that Adam says is that, the most valuable professionals are people who, see things differently. And for me, the way you can see things differently is being a generalist, if I can say. And also not thinking about this is also in my personal career. I always ask myself, most likely at the end of each year, I ask myself, in 5 years' time, what kind of skills should I be looking at? So I treat my career as sort of like an investment portfolio. And as an investment portfolio, you need to be thinking, how can I continue making this portfolio valuable? If you look at currently the world we are living in right now, if you have a portfolio, you might be worried. There's a lot going on with all these wars and other issues. But if you know that you've got a portfolio that, is diverse, you are also limiting the risks that can come. So think of that as your career, as an investment portfolio that you want to keep making valuable. And that is why continuously learning, be it also, I want to just also say that in learning in terms of formal education as well as informal education, very important. And also supplementing that with the experience. That is very important. So here's what I want to leave you with, if anything, that you can take from this. So I think the key thing is, please don't wait to start learning. Don't wait until you are forced to learn because your job is at risk, because the situation has changed and now you are forced, because you are now forced to learn. Learning should be part of your continuous professional development. It should be something that you enjoy doing, not just because you are forced. Because this is where you also meet frustration. You end up learning something, and then later, you don't get the job you wanted or you thought you were going to get, or you find that maybe you feel like that education after 4 years of learning is useless. You don't want to be in such a situation. But look at what you want to do, what interests you. What makes you happy, and I don't want to. One thing that people maybe can say is, I'm limited by resources. I want to learn this field. We now have a lot of resources. YouTube, right now you're watching this through YouTube, the Careers channel. And there are many other resources. Personally, I also listen to a lot of channels. One of my favorite channels is from Stephen Bartlett, who's always inviting different people who share different perspectives. As I work, it's easy for me to just listen to the podcast that is having. I get 1 or 2 nuggets that also, it's part of learning. And some of those things, they also change the way that I think. So just want to say that learning is now easier in this day and age. There are many resources out there, free resources. You can also say, but I don't have internet access, I don't have data. But when you're at work, how come you'll be using that Wi-Fi at work to, TikTok? That's the time that you could be using, maybe download a useful video. You want to learn something that is in your field or in a field that you're interested in. They are always in abundance. Just always think of abundance. There's abundance of opportunities. Even as you travel, as you interact with other people, talking with someone, you can have 1 hour of discussion and leave feeling very, motivated, and you've learned. That's also part of your own continuous professional development. And so I encourage you to keep learning, and that's the way you can become agile, especially in this current environment. And that's the only way, you can keep being, relevant, also outcompete people that are there. Because if you are, continuously learning, your thinking also changes. The way you see things, the way you do things becomes different, and that, separates you from the rest. So thank you so much for being with me today. And if you have not already done so, please subscribe, like, and share. Otherwise, see you on the next episode.